Welcome back. Obviously, tariffs are still on everybody's mind. And the way this works in the economy, we go to the expert, Dr. Alex Theisen from GCU. Thanks again. It's good to talk to you.
Of course, great to be here again, Mike.
So the pause of the tariffs caused a whiplash in the stock market. When that happened, it went from being 800 points down in pre-market trading to, last I saw, around 2,700 points. What does this tell you about the economy overall?
Well, what this really means is that the markets have really been, the shred of thread that markets have been hanging on for a bit here is the belief that these tariffs were a window into negotiations, right? They were a pathway to actually opening negotiations with other countries. And I think the markets are taking today's announcement of a pause as a sign that that was the right way to read those. So, You'll note that we're still down from where we were on Wednesday because I do think the markets are now pricing in a little bit more risk. But now I think there's a little bit more hope on the upside of we could maybe emerge from this with a little bit more productive of a trade relationship going forward.
The one thing that they have made a big statement about, and it sounds like the rest of the world seems to be lining up, is that China is the one that they believe is causing problems and is not playing by the same rules because they've raised the tariffs on China to 125%. What does that mean for places like Walmart? What does that mean for areas where so much of the goods that they sell are produced in China?
Well, I think, quite frankly, on the China side of things, this is one where I think wait and see will be still the predominant attitude. I think that, 100 and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 125% tariffs on China is a massive, massive upset to that trading relationship. But I think it's going to be really important to see whether that's, just another element of a negotiation versus a long-term change in the trading relationship between the United States and the US. Because I think for retailers, that's going to be the real concern there because 125% essentially would require a massive reorientation of the supply chain. And I think that that's going to be something we're going to have to be paying a lot of attention to going forward.
And not getting into too many specifics, but I want you to be a history teacher for a minute as well, and not just economics, and that classically, tariffs are viewed as to not work for the U.S., especially mass tariffs like this for the U.S. economy. Is this different than the other things we've seen historically? Is every situation different because of the time period we're in?
Well, I mean, every single situation is always different, but I do think there are some general lessons we can learn here, which is that trade wars, if they are allowed to escalate out of control, don't make anyone better off. If you look at the Great Depression, right, which is the story that we always look at, you have Smoot-Hawley, which were wide-ranging tariffs of a very at a very high level, and that wound up leading to retaliation and retaliation and retaliation, which meant that global trade shrank by about 2/3 over the course of the beginning of that Great Depression. And that's the sort of nightmare scenario that we're really trying to avoid. So the thing that we're hoping for here is that countries treat this as an opportunity to come to the table and not to escalate. And I think that's the main lesson you can learn from history is that escalation leads to bad outcomes for everyone.
There was, the White House said 75 companies have been calling and want to come to the table. 75 countries want to come to the table on this. What does that say to you that with the call of these tariffs, 75 nations coming to the U.S. and saying, all right, let's talk? What does that mean?
Well, I think this is always the tough part here, right? Because last week, the discussion was primarily about trying to get trade deficits down with these countries, right? And that's a hard thing for a country to promise to do. So I think the real tell will be if we get an actual concrete trade agreement out of some of these negotiations, because right now I think it's just a little bit hard to see what exactly the United States is looking for here, and what exactly those other countries are willing to give up. So I think once we get, hopefully, an actual negotiated agreement here, we'll get a little bit better of a sense of what exactly is the end goal here for those negotiations with countries other than China.
Well, Dr. Theisen, I always appreciate the insight and the expertise, and I hope we continue to have conversations about things on the good side, not the bad.
All right. Always happy to be here, Mike.
All right, that's Dr. Theisen from GCU. We'll be back here in just a moment.